Cradle, Dogs of Fount, Chapter 42, Part 1. Fount was changing, and even a child could sense it. There was an unrest at school. The adults seemed stressed about something greater than what they'd ever dealt with. Porter even saw some students skulking around the hallways, and others looking worried, even during the course of the day. Porter heard that many of his fellow students' parents had lost their jobs they had for years, and that Parliament, or Congress, Porter always confused the two, had slashed public assistance or welfare, making some families go hungry, or even driven to stealing food. There were a few minor riots in the Pills because, from what the radio said, what little they had been taken away. Dad blamed the liberals for the assassination of the judges and the dismantling of order, but when Porter asked Dad to clarify, citing that liberals are for public assistance, Dad seemed at a loss for words. The listless look on Dad's face then invoked fear in Porter like he hadn't felt before. All of this was happening, and Ben was on his way to climb over the wall and see what Fount was good for. It seemed odd that Ben would be here at a time that, as far as Porter knew, was the worst for Fount had been in the last 100 years. He was on the bus heading toward Midtown, and the seating was full. Some people on the bus seemed too rich to be riding. A man was wearing a flashy watch, and his clothes were high-end and hip, yet on the bus he acted like this sort of social situation was new for him. He looked around at the faces of the people on the bus, as if they could help him, or if he was expecting everyone to break into conversation at once. The sun was still in the sky, and Porter thought it would be risky to hang around that part of the wall during the day, but the last message from Ben instructed Porter to head toward the wall, and he'd be over it at the end of dusk. The bus stop came quicker than he'd expected, and he had to lunge for the cord before it passed. As Porter stepped out of the back of the bus, he took away a few points from his veteran bus passenger status for that close call. It was a spurt of humor during these tense times. He had about a 2-mile walk down Drury Lane. It was mostly a wooded street with woods on either side of the road. There were plenty of squirrels running crisscross through the street, and in the dirt and grass, sparrows, Porter guessed, arrowed through the air in couples and trios. It was a sense of freedom the street gave Porter, since because the absence of people, and especially cars and e-bikes. As he walked along, the silence put him in a sort of trance of thought. He would catch glimpses of his mother and different memories of her being in the kitchen in the morning, cooking. Or she'd be holding a mug of hot chocolate on Christmas morning when Porter could care less about saying good morning and get to opening the presents. Then he'd remember her listening to what she called soft rock and how it made the rides with her in silence seem so pleasant. It didn't even hurt to think about it in the state Porter was in. It was just like someone turned on the faucet and he was just letting the water run, knowing eventually he'd cut it off. But it was soothing in its nostalgia. He took out his radio and looked at the hands of the clock built into it. And it was about 7:15, which gave him good enough time to make it to the wall, closer to sunset. When he finally made it to the wall, he was surprised at how tall it was in person. He'd seen walls before, but never this close. They were gray and smooth, with columns half jutted out every 15 meters across. He decided to sit against it when he saw the telltale spot of red paint that Ben spoke of. Looking back down Drury Lane was calming. The trees sighed and swayed their deep green leaves, and it sounded like millions of people softly and rapidly snapping their fingers. He had dozed off and found that it was darker and cooler. He started to worry that he may have missed Ben, but realized that if Ben came over the wall, he would have seen Porter and woke him up. But what if it was the wrong dot, Porter thought. He dismissed the thought once fully awake. Now he waited for the sun to go down, and was extremely bored now with the silent scenery. The thoughts of morality came into play. He realized that he was bringing an enemy of the state within their walls. Yes, Ben could possibly be a spy. He might not even be a real kid. He could bring in new diseases or drugs into Fount's neighborhoods. Honestly, Porter didn't know where his trust for Ben came from, but he sensed the loneliness in their conversations. And it wasn't fake, because Porter was familiar with the feeling of wanting to scream and cry in someone's arms, but never being brave enough to break down like that. Ben had it worse than that, possibly, and for that reason, Porter felt justified for bringing him over.